I got to the point on my fertility journey where struggling to have a baby had completely taken over my entire life without even realizing it was happening. Trying to conceive had affected my relationship, my health, my mental health, my sleep, my work, my friendships, my finances, and all of my plans for the future. If you're in a place where you can relate to this, then I hope this episode will shed some light onto how to come out of it. Because getting myself out of this place of despair was what actually led me to my positive pregnancy test in the end. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm excited for this episode because we've had so many wonderful guests joining the show lately for interviews. So I thought it was time for a solo episode where I can go a little deeper into some of the processes that I like to share with my students to help them through their own journeys as well. Today, we're talking about the 4 things that I did to uplevel my life when I was trying to conceive. And ultimately, I feel that these are the things that helped me to fall pregnant in the end anyway. So if you've gotten to a place where trying to have a baby is literally all you think about from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep at night, then I hope that some of these strategies are going to help because I remember it so well. And it is so common, in a huge majority of the women I work with. Trying to conceive just completely rules your life. So if you feel that you're in that space or you're getting into that space, here are some really simple, practical things that you can do to start moving out of it. All right, so number 1, I got obsessive about my sleep. And this might sound like one more thing you have to do on your fertility journey, but for me, this was such a game changer. I have mentioned before on previous episodes that I developed chronic insomnia when I was trying to conceive. And this is something that had never happened before in my life. I'd never had trouble sleeping. And it got to the point that I was put on sleeping tablets. I think I went through 3 or 4 different ones, and we kept having to find ones that would work because I'd get used to them and then they'd have to up my dosage. It was ridiculous. And it went on for months. And I thought, this can't be my life, And I thought if I could actually just get a good night's sleep, so much of my life would feel easier. And we all know how rotten we feel after a really bad night's sleep. So this is pretty common knowledge. But I find that even if you don't have trouble falling asleep, I do often find that a lot of my students who are going through a stressful time with their fertility, it's, this waking up during the night or tossing and turning, and especially around that kind of 2, 3 a.m. mark, it's a sign of high cortisol levels, and it's a sign that your body and your brain are not as regulated as they need to be. And it is this endless loop of no sleep means increased cortisol levels, which means more stress, more anxiety, and the harder we find our life and our day is. It also affects things like melatonin production, which is so important for combating oxidative stress and supporting egg quality. We know a lot of fertility doctors will actually prescribe melatonin in prep for IVF cycles. So we all know that sleep is so important, but these are just some of the reasons why it's something that you should focus on. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think you need to be obsessive to the point that it starts to get in the way of your life and things that you want to do. For example, if you want to go out on the weekend with your partner or your friends and just enjoy dinner and stay up late chatting, don't worry about a general, night here or there that you're going to be missing having a quote unquote perfect night's sleep, because you need to live your life. But the majority of your time, when you're working throughout the week, having a routine and helping you get into a place of deep rest is so critical. So what did I do? I want to point out that getting a good night's sleep is not just about what you do at night and what you do before you go to bed, though that is very helpful, and we'll talk about that. But it is not just that nighttime routine, but it is what you do during the day as well. So we'll start off with the nighttime routine because that is so important and probably the biggest one that we need a little bit of help around. So this is not what anyone wants to hear, but at least an hour before you go to bed, no screens. That includes the TV, your tablet. Turn off your phone. Put it on airplane mode. Turn it off. Plug it into charge somewhere away from where you're going to need it. And especially that last hour, it really gives your mind and your brain and your nervous system a chance to wind down to help get into that parasympathetic state, that state of rest and digest. And having a screen in front of you is incredibly stimulating and activating for your nervous system. You might find that wearing blue light blocking glasses makes a big difference in the evening, so when it gets dark. And yes, these are incredibly helpful, but if you don't really want to go down that path, or you feel like you just need that simple, easy option, screens away an hour before bed. Another thing that I really encourage my students to do is find yourself 5 to 10 minutes sometime in the evening and lay on your back with your legs resting up against the wall. It is one of the most calming and restorative practices that we can do. It is a wonderful way to help you switch over into that parasympathetic state. And you can do things like meditation and slow, deep breathing if that helps you as well. But I find just laying with your legs up the wall, perhaps listening to some beautiful calming music, makes a big difference. So as you're getting into bed, obviously, hopefully we get ourselves into a place where we can feel rested enough to fall asleep easily. But if you're still finding that in the mornings you're waking up, you don't feel that rested, you don't feel that refreshed, then we need to look at what we're doing throughout the day as well. So when you get up in the morning at the moment, what is the first thing that you do? Is your phone your alarm clock? Do you reach for it? Do you switch it off? And then do you open up your emails, open up your social media accounts and just start checking all your notifications? If we can get natural sunlight onto our face and our eyes before artificial light like a screen, it makes all the difference. So if you have to use your phone as your alarm clock, sure, use it as your alarm clock. Keep it on airplane mode until you've gotten out of bed and you've gotten some early morning sun onto your face. Even if it's 5 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes would be better, but grab a cup of tea or coffee. Can you open your window, get some sunlight, go outside onto a balcony or a garden? It is such a wonderful way to help set your circadian rhythms, which again help prepare you for a more energetic day ahead and a better sleep that coming night. Another thing that's important is getting outside. We were not designed as beings, mammals, to be shut away indoors all day. And, it's so hard. We go from our house to our car to public transport to our work and then back again. We spend so much of our day indoors. So see how you can get moments of being outside, instead of eating lunch at your desk. Can you get outside? Can you sit in the sun for 10 minutes and really just breathe in some air? Let your nervous system regulate. Being in nature is one of the easiest and quickest ways to do that. Of course, we talk about coffee and, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a naturopath, but, they all talk about looking at caffeine levels, and that is something we want to do in the morning only, after your breakfast, not on an empty stomach, and just really avoiding high levels of caffeine in the afternoon and especially the evening as well. And then what other practices can you fit into your day that are going to help to regulate your nervous system? Can we spend 5 minutes just doing some calming breath work? Can we go to a yoga session? Can we go for a walk by a lake? Can we get to the beach? Just something that you find that you enjoy that helps calm you as well. All right, so number 2, I got okay with saying no. And I just prioritized all the things that were a hell yes. And if they were not a hell yes, I was a no. And I have to admit it did affect a few of my friendships, and I'm sure you can relate to this, that there are some people who they just don't get it when you're going through fertility challenges. You can explain yourself 1,000 times, but at the end of the day, they just don't get it. But in the end, I found that it was more important for me to potentially upset someone and have a little bit of a rocky patch within our friendship than to keep saying yes to things that would end up triggering me. I didn't want to go to so many young children's birthday parties. I didn't want to go to baby showers. I didn't even want to go to group events like dinners and lunches where people were all talking about their kids and about planning their next kid. And, it is so endless. And maybe you can relate to this as well. But if I, would just go to these events, I would be triggered and it would affect me for days. And then it would affect things like my relationship. I'd end up arguing with my partner and it just wasn't worth it. And hopefully you can explain to some of the important people in your life why you can't say yes to every event, but what's going to be better for you in the long run. And then get comfortable with being able to prioritize yourself. And then what does it feel when you say hell yes to something? This is where I got into all these amazing woo-woo type practices that I talk about. I went to rebirthing breathwork events and sound healing evenings. That's just me. But whatever you enjoy, maybe it's a solo trip away for the weekend. Does the idea of just going out to the countryside and reading a book just light you up? Maybe it's having a night out with other friends who aren't trying to conceive and they aren't going to ask you all these questions that are going to trigger you. Just getting used to really putting yourself first. And, also realize you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to constantly come up with excuses for things that are going to drain you. I would hope that perhaps people in your life who know you're struggling to conceive can kind of get it and not probe you and ask you for questions. But at the end of the day, just saying you're unwell, that you don't feel up to it, it's a white lie, but if it helps protect your mental health, then I think it's worth it. So number 3, I got into flow with my cycle. And I have talked about cycle syncing before on the podcast, but honestly, it's just like this magic superpower that no one ever taught us at school. And it's something that I feel our ancestors knew so much about intuitively, before we had things like cycle tracking apps and birth control and, all of these wonderful ways that we think that we've made our lives easier. Being in tune with what your body needs, both physically and energetically at each phase of your cycle, just made so much difference to my life. It made everything feel easier and it gave me permission to do things that I wanted to do and to not do things I didn't want to do. So I'm sure that you're aware of cycle syncing, but I'll go through some of the basics right now. During your period, this is a time for rest. Your body is working so hard just to shed the previous month's lining and the buildup within the uterus. And it takes a lot of energy to do this. So if you are constantly pushing yourself to go to a hard workout early in the morning at the gym or to, go for an hour run after work, and if you start just listening to your body, you'll probably notice that your energy levels, they're not that high at this time of the month. And honor that. Sleep in, skip the gym, lie on the sofa, watch Netflix, do all of the things that are nourishing. You really want to keep your body warm, your uterus warm, eating warm, nourishing foods, hot cups of teas, avoiding really icy cold drinks, and, keeping warm clothes around your belly. All of these things just really nourish and support you. As you move through the follicular phase and into the ovulatory phase of your cycle, this is like our inner springtime. It's where our energy levels start to rise. It's where we're feeling a little bit more able to go out and to exercise, and we often feel more social during these times as well. And our ovulation is sort of the peak of the cycle. That's where your energy levels should be at their highest. You should feel most confident. Your libido should increase. And just knowing that if there's a bit of a disconnect here and you don't feel energetic at these times of the cycle, know that there are probably things you could be looking at from your menstrual phase or for perhaps the previous cycle. Were you pushing yourself quite a lot before your period was due? Were your energy levels starting to drop, but you just kept pushing through that, as we are told so much as women to do? So as you get through ovulation, we then move into the luteal phase, or our 2-week wait if we are trying to conceive. And one of two things is happening during this stage. Either you're pregnant and your body is gearing up to do the biggest job it has ever done in its life, in which case your body needs, again, that sort of more nourishing energy, a little bit more kind of low intensity workouts, less on your schedule. Or you're not pregnant and once again your body is getting ready for your period to start once again. And in both cases, your energy levels are going to be decreasing, and we need to be supporting the body in that way. And that's not to say don't exercise. We know that continuing to move and to encourage circulation is one of the best ways to support early pregnancy. But it's about reducing intensity, perhaps frequency, and duration of some of those exercises that we love to do. So go for a walk, but maybe don't go for an hour's run. Go to the gym, but skip cardio, move over to weights. And that's where we lean into things like restorative yoga that help to really calm the nervous system and remind your body that now is an excellent time to conceive and to support those early stages of implantation. So that's just a quick overview of cycle syncing, and there's so much you can research about that, but getting into this flow of what your body needs at each phase it's just like this awakening, without sounding too dramatic. I didn't learn this stuff until I was in my late 30s, and I felt so ripped off that this wasn't taught to me at school. And I just hope that next generation and our daughters and beyond learn it a lot quicker than we do. And number 4, the last thing I want to talk about is I stopped restricting all of the joy in my life. I don't know about you, but I was doing 85,000 things a day in order to help my fertility. I was eating the perfect diet. I was taking all my 19 different supplements per day. I was going to hypnosis, to, oh my gosh, fertility massage, acupuncture. The list was endless. And I would always make a decision based on, will this help my fertility versus will this make me happy? Is this something I'm actually going to enjoy? And when you get into that stage where your entire life and every decision you make is ruled by your fertility journey, this is where things get difficult. I didn't plan any holidays for years and years. And it just got to the point where, I wouldn't even say yes to a weekend away with my husband, because I thought, well, I can't plan 2 months ahead, because what if we're deciding to go through another round of treatments by then and I'm going to have to cancel it or have to move it. But honestly, the only important thing on this journey is you. And if you are miserable, and if you're waking up in the morning dreading your day, and there is just this dark cloud following you at every step, then I invite you to bring some joy back into your life. And it's not easy. And you do think that, oh my goodness, if I eat this toasted cheese sandwich, which looks so good, it's going to ruin my fertility for the month, because I'm not allowed to have gluten. I'm not allowed to have dairy. I'm not allowed to have processed meats, or, whatever the rules are that we're all following. But think about going to, your favorite restaurant with your husband, having a beautiful glass of wine that you enjoy, and just talking about things that, light you up, and leaning into this idea that you can enjoy your life at the same time that you're trying to conceive. And I know that's a really hard thing to do, but just start with little things. Where can you let go just that little bit more? Are there appointments that you can skip or cancel? Do you need to go to acupuncture 3 times a week? Do you have to sit down and do your meditation every day for 20 minutes? If it's something that you're forcing yourself to do, is it really worth it? And then can you plan things that you look forward to? Whether it is an afternoon where you just get to put your PJs on, watch trash on TV, and enjoy yourself. Know that you don't have to be anywhere. You don't have to answer to anyone. You don't have to go anywhere. Do you want to plan a spa day? Maybe you've got a friend that you just want to go and have a really relaxing day with, or can you book that weekend away with your partner, or just something that's going to bring you joy, and you see it in your calendar and you get excited. So we'll go through those 4 things again. And if you have any questions or anything you want to add, or you've got any feedback, please contact me, because I always love to know what you think about what I share on this podcast and about how it's affecting your fertility journey. So number 1 is I got obsessive about my sleep and made that a real priority. That made the rest of my life so much easier. Number 2 is I got okay with saying no and prioritizing what I wanted to do, not what everyone else wanted. Number 3 was getting into flow with my cycle and just giving myself permission to be energetic when I wanted to be energetic, not when I thought I had to. And number 4 was I stopped restricting all of the joy in my life. So I really hope that some of these things that I've spoken about relate to your journey and that you found them helpful, and that maybe this has just given you permission to take that little step back to reminding yourself who you are, and that you are so much more than this journey of trying to conceive. If you want to start implementing some of these more practical tools like breathwork and yoga and meditation in a really easy and manageable way, and to start up-leveling your life, grab a copy of my free fertility yoga guide. There's a link down in the show notes, and this shows you how to work with your cycle, which I'm very passionate about, support your nervous system, which is crucial, and then just start making a difference to your fertility journey and your mental health. So let me know how you go with that as well. Thank you so much for being here. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone. You never know who might be struggling or who might need to know these things as well. If you have a minute, please leave a review. I love hearing your feedback about the show. Just click down the bottom, leave a review, let me know what you think. And I can't wait to see you here again next week. We have an awesome episode next week. It is one of those ones that I've been planning for a long time, and I have finally been able to organize it, schedule it. It is an interview with a transformational breathwork teacher, and she is a coach that I've worked with, and she's one of the reasons that I teach breathwork today. And I have spent many years, going through counseling and therapy, but transformational breathwork was something that helped me move through past experiences of trauma and challenge in my life in an instant way. And we go deep into both the science of how it works and a little bit into the woo-woo stuff as well, the spiritual part of things, because it's one of those techniques that blends the both. It's super scientific in how it works, but it takes you to this transcendent level where you have an out-of-body experience. Anyway, we'll get into it in more detail next week. It's going to be amazing. So I will see you back here for that. But until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.